NL East Week previews continue. We looked at the Mets, we looked at the Braves, different expectations for those two teams. For the Washington Nationals, it seems like they have been in the World Series conversation for the last 5 years or so, but not a lot of playoff success. Is this the year? Bill Ladson, MLB.com, has covered the Nationals since they were known as the Expos. He knows a little bit about this team. He joins us now with a look at the Nats. Nationals, always seemingly the last couple of years in the World Series conversation. This year, any different?
It's hard to say. This time there's some question marks. The number one thing is health. The number two thing, this team is getting old, and I think the window is closing. And I think everything has to be perfect this year for them to at least get to the World Series. Do I think they're a championship club, a World Series team? No. I think they still need a closer. I don't like the back end of their rotation because of injuries. We have Joe Ross and Gio Gonzalez there. He hasn't been injured, but he's been too inconsistent. I just think there's just too many question marks.
You look at this team that was built on pitching, here in Philadelphia, very reminiscent of that, four aces that the Phillies had. When the Nats went out and got that rotation and put it together, it really, would you say it has lived up to the expectations or not really?
Not really. I think Max Scherzer has lived up to his expectations, but I think the rotation overall, no, because some of them have been injured at the wrong time, like Strasburg last year. I mean, he missed the postseason. I just think if I were to answer that question, I would just say Scherzer has lived up to expectations, but the rotation overall, I don't think it has.
Yeah, Strasburg, it seemingly he's still a big name, 15 wins last year, but has he underperformed in some capacity?
I don't think he underperformed. The thing is that he's always hurt all the time.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, he missed the postseason, and that was a big blow to the Nationals. I think that's one of the reasons they lost to the Dodgers in the NLDS. So I just think health is the number one factor for this team.
Let's get into Bryce Harper. There's so much speculation around him and that his time in Washington could be ending. I mean, is it like a foregone conclusion that the sand is going through the hourglass there for him?
I wouldn't say that. I would say he's 50-50 right now. But to be honest with you, I mean, that's 2 years. You're talking 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to predict. But if I had to predict what would happen, I would say it's 50-50 that he stays right now.
Yeah, he's a guy who's been very interesting in his time. Would you say he had a down year last year? Is that fair?
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, after the Cubs walked him 13 times in that 4-game series in May, Harper was never the same. I don't know, it was a mental thing. He had some injuries, but I have to think that it was a mental issue with him, the way the Cubs went about it against him, because he was never the same after that.
Bill Ladson with us looking at the Nationals. Of course, as you mentioned, a veteran team. They went out and got Wieters. Zimmerman, he's starting to become that guy that seemingly has been there for a long time. They had Murphy, who was great for them. Werth, we all know that deal. I'm sure people are kind of looking at that deal now thinking, what the heck was going on there? That lineup, is this an offensive can this team score enough runs this year? They seem like they go through so many funks with that lineup.
Again, I have to say it's a question mark because, they were inconsistent offensively last year. They're doing well this year during spring training, but you know what? I mean, I got to wait and see till the regular season starts. I don't think they're a World Series. I don't think they have a World Series offense. And I think, Trey Turner will improve. There's no question about that. Top of the lineup. He replaces Danny Espinosa. Big improvement there. I just think I have to wait and see what happens during the regular season because I still think it's not the greatest lineup I've seen.
Hey, is that how's that Werth deal received down there? Has that worked out?
It has. You know what? Don't just look at the stats. If you look at my Twitter page, I call Jayson Werth the king. You know why? Because if it wasn't for Jayson Werth, that organization would not be where it is today. I mean, he really changed that clubhouse. I can remember before he came, it was one of the worst clubhouses. You had to walk on eggshells. And then when he came, he really turned that clubhouse around. I'm telling you, it's Jayson Werth, man. Just don't look at the stats. It was a great deal for an athlete.
Well, and that's fair to say because, Bill, I know when he left here, the Phillies didn't want to lose him. It was just that contract was just so big. It was like, okay, you basically forced our hand here. But you're right. Many people just look at the numbers and say, man, you're paying, what, $21 million this year and next year again for a guy who's going to be 38. But I guess, as you say, that kind of, that deal kind of set the tone for the expectations of that franchise.
That's correct. And, I really credit Jayson Werth for just changing the attitude. Man, I'm telling you, before he arrived, the attitude was horrible. And he really changed things. To me, I considered him as the second manager of that team every year because he was that way.
Interesting. So yesterday we looked at the Mets. Obviously, their expectations are World Series, NL East. What would you say the expectations are, the realistic ones for Nationals fans?
Realistically, wild card, maybe. I just think.
So you think there's a gap between Washington and New York?
I do this time because I like the Mets pitching. I think it depends on health. If the Mets can stay healthy, I think they can win that East Division. I'm predicting them to win the East. But, you just never know. I mean, Dusty Baker is the manager of the Nationals. I will never underestimate Dusty Baker. You just never know because he can will a team to win. I saw that last year. So, again, you got to wait and see.
Hey, what's the difference between covering the Nationals and the Expos?
Wow. I got to tell you, though, I love my 2 years in Montreal. I'm telling you, the people were outstanding. Even though they were not a good team, I loved every minute in Montreal, and I will never say anything bad about Montreal. It was a great place.
Very interesting.
And,
you got a chance to cover both Montreal and now for MLB.com, he's with the Nationals, who expectations – a little murky as they've been different than they've been the last couple of years. We'll see how that division goes. We'll wrap up our look tomorrow with the Marlins. Bill, we appreciate the time.
Anytime. Take care.